Binoculars. It is quite indispensable, as without scrutinizing their antlers, you can easily mistake one stag for another, and thereby shoot the wrong animal, a mistake for which there is no valid excuse at Berleburg. In spite of Patrick Rath's vast experience with red deer, he always chooses to check every minute detail one extra time before allowing any hunter to shoot. To most clients, it seems like Patrick has the eyes of a hawk, because he can immediately see all kinds of details which we lesser mortals do not see right away. Contrary to what you might think, it is not always easy to find a certain stag in the terrain. For instance, it is not unusual at all that the Feisthirsch, the fat stags, do not appear at all during the rut. Finally, the hunters managed to find the lead stag at a place called Eltenberg, which for once is with his hinds out here in the open. Now it shall be exciting to see if Patrick finally will succeed in getting a shot at the lead stag. He has now tried without luck for 5 rutting seasons.
It's not so far away. Okay. Crawl up there. Okay. Try, okay. Patrick? Yeah. Is that you? Yes. Okay. 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 Take him. Take him again. Take him again.
Better safe than sorry. Paul Erik shoots the stag in the shoulder again. And yes, the stag fever has even got a grip of an old hand like Paul Erik.
Perfect. Perfect. What do you think? Was okay? Yeah, but I think the first was on a little bit too on the back, right? Because he was facing a little bit, you know. Yeah. Because he was a little bit, what do you call it, sideways, you know. For me, he was a little bit sideways. Yeah. He was turning the body back, you know. Yeah. So I went a little bit back on him to get the other shoulder, you know. Yeah. I think I get the other shoulder, but I'm not sure. Is that there? It's a fox. Oh, come on. You let me take the fox. Shit. Aye. Fuck, I missed the fox now. That'll be good to see me shoot him. Yeah. That was quite exciting talk, was it?
Yeah.
Huh?
In slow motion, it's easy to see how the first bullet is correctly placed in the lungs, but right behind and just under the shoulder blade, and accordingly the stag did not drop on the spot. The second shot wasn't really necessary, but no true hunter takes any chances when in doubt whether an animal is merely wounded.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, Patrick. That's not bad, is it?
That's it. Perfect.
Ah. That's good pattern, isn't it? Beautiful.
And a very, very old one. Weidmannsheil.
In the traditional German and the 25th of September. When you walk in the terrain, you feel that there are stags behind every hill. And remarkably, the territorial stags all have heads measuring 210 to 240 CIC points, an exquisite result of Prince Richard's life's work. We shall return to this whitish stag later. That only the fittest and strongest stags really are the ones who dominate the breeding appears from the fact that every year 2 to 4 trophy stags are killed as a result of their fighting. It is not necessarily stags with the largest body or antlers that win the fights. Aggressiveness, fighting technique, age, and general condition are also of importance. The fighting leaves little time for the stags to feed during the rut, and during these 3 to 4 weeks it is not uncommon for the stags to reduce their body weight by up to 25%. Actually, it can be a big problem for the stags if they get too enervated, as they will be ill-prepared for an early or a hard winter. At Baleborg, Prince Richard has shot the largest free-roaming stag in the world, with a trophy officially measured at no less than 270.4 CIC points. This definitely is a well-earned reward for the prince's outstanding efforts for his and the entire region's red deer population. Game management is a very important part of his life, and he has a true love of nature. Rarely a day passes where he is not in the forest watching the game, regardless whether it's red deer, wild boar, roe deer, or mouflon. The hinds are only in oestrus for 12 to 24 hours, so the stags must constantly guard them, all the rut's duration of 3 to 4 weeks. In order to keep his hinds for himself, the territorial stags must go through numerous and often prolonged fights with their rivals, which constantly are challenging his position as the stag that the hinds will mate with. Often the fights are very violent, and it is inevitable that some of the stags make deep wounds in their opponents with one or more of their tines. If a stag is deeply wounded in the abdomen or the lungs, it will often cost the victim his life. It's very evident that these fights are deadly serious. With his roaring, the territorial stag announces that he is the king of the forest and that other stags will be in trouble if they get in his way. But at the same time, the roars act as a challenge to the stags, which feel strong enough to try and fight the roaring stag off his territory and take over his hinds. This marvelous stag, which is on the harvest list this year, is often found on this slope. Unfortunately for the hunters, it is difficult to approach here, and cover for both the stag and hinds is not far away. But exactly this extra challenge of approaching the stag is appealing to Danish Niels Due Jensen. This is Niels' third try to take a good stag here at Belleborg, and the hunters are looking for an uneven 16-pointer with a very good spread and very massive antlers, an exquisite trophy if Niels manages to get him this year. We're in late September, and finally the hunters have managed to locate the cunning stag in the gray morning light. Unfortunately, it is impossible to get within range of it, and the hunters have no other choice than...
Berleborg, og vi kom herud til Skovfogedhuset, og pludselig ser vi hjorten der. der står heroppe og er allerede kommet ud. Og klokken er vel højst 6:30, og vi begynder straks pyrsen op imod hjorten og kommer frem til op over en bakke, sådan med rigtig pustet, og endelig får jeg vejret igen og kommer ned til det skjul, hvor vi skal skyde hjorten fra. Og vi har egentlig god tid, men mit anlæg er ikke for godt, desværre. Så jeg rystede noget frem og tilbage, men endelig fik jeg holdt på hjorten, og Ole Rasmussen støttede mig rigtig godt, og så gik skuddet. Og gudskelov, så gik hjorten ned i skuddet, og var vel sådan set mere eller mindre forændt. Det var en fantastisk oplevelse her på Berleborg. En oplevelse, som jeg kun får én gang i mit liv. Og det bliver altså i dag. Det er jeg meget taknemmelig for. Og tak til Arat, og tak til Ole for meget professionel rådgivning og hjælp. Og sådan en ulige 16-ender, han er jo altså i særklasse, og har alderen, og alt er vel ligesom det skulle være, og som jeg kunne ønske mig, og jeg har drømt om i flere år. Så det er jeg lykkelig for.
While the hunters are sitting with Mr. Hubertus Brinkschuller and reviving the successful hunt and enjoying the marvelous stag, Mrs. Brinkschuller comes out with a welcome refreshment, a typical warm and friendly gesture which is characteristic for the entire atmosphere here at Berleburg. The jungle drums have also been busy, and soon Prince Richard and Gustav arrive to see the stag and congratulate Niels with the fine result of all his efforts through the years.
Diesmal war die Tür ganz leise.
Det har skufugten gjort godt. Lige slæbt det ud til stald. Ja, det er en rigtig god hjort. Ja. Ja. Kan ikke få det ud.
For instance, Carsten, during one of his stalks last year, was almost tumbled over by two fighting stags who, like these two, were so preoccupied with fighting that they didn't even notice him and Patrick, even when one of the stags gave up and fled. It is very evident that the victorious stag is not happy with just chasing his opponent away. It tries to damage him permanently in order to keep him away for good. If you divide a population of deer into age brackets, you can describe it graphically as a pyramid with the most and youngest animals at the base. With a total population of 350 animals, only 15 to 20 stags will be 12 years or more under natural conditions. Only very rarely will a stag live to be 16 to 18 years old, and the oldest stag ever shot at Belleberg was 20 years old. These pictures of the stag, which Carsten then only caught a glimpse of, were taken last year. At that time, he didn't succeed to get the stag, which is nicknamed Rebber. Carsten and Patrick are stalking in the terrain in order to find a stag 12 years of age or older. They see a good number of stags, which undoubtedly would have been shot at other places with a less dedicated harvesting policy. Although the two hunters have seen many fantastic stags, luck hasn't been on Carsten's side. The wind has been very unstable in the last few days and shifted between the hills, so it has not been easy to get within range of the animals. Now it is Carsten's last morning of the hunt, but fortunately, the stags are still roaring, although we are approaching noon. In the end, Patrick has chosen to take a chance. The hunters have formally caught a glimpse of Rebber, which is an outstanding old stag, and Patrick has now decided to try and stalk it in the forest. Patrick has a pretty good idea of where the stag is and thinks he knows it from its roar. However, it is far more difficult task to stalk up to a stag here in the forest as opposed to out in the open, where cover is on the side of the hunters. The view between the trees is very limited, and it is much more difficult noiselessly to get within the short range needed in order to be able to shoot properly. In return, there is almost no wind in here between the trees, but every step must be considered carefully, as there is nothing that will drown even the slightest noise. Naturally, this puts extra pressure on the hunters, and it is even Carsten's last day of hunting this season. The nerve-wracking stalk continues. To tell the direction to go, the hunters now only have the distinct and powerful smell of the stag which soils itself during the rut. But there is no doubt that the stag is laying in the dense little beeches somewhere in the front. But where? And will the hunters be able to get close enough to shoot, even if they localize the stag precisely? Here, Patrick's skill as a guide are really put to the test. All the time, he must balance the need to get within range before the stag stops roaring, and the need to keep hidden. In the end, the hunters must take a chance Very carefully, they stalk on, as the stag probably is right behind the tree stumps, right in front of them. Now the hunters must be even more careful and keep their eyes open. Otherwise, the hunt will be over in an instant. Patrick has seen a glimpse of an antler between the beech trees in front of him. Is it the right stag? Finally, luck smiled to Karsten.